and welcome to Small Business Chat. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning. How's it
Got the
going this week?
It's good. It's good. Today we are talking about, well, we've got our three key topics. We've got skills, inspire, and inform. And I think for this one, this is very much under the inform category. And today we're talking about women's health, and it's part one because this is quite a broad subject. And I think that I don't know about you, Karen, but I've been seeing so much more, particularly on platforms like LinkedIn, which is where Karen and I live most of the time. We've been seeing a lot of positive awareness and discussion around the menopause. But actually, in this session, I think it's really important to actually show that women's health issues have such an impact on everyone who was born female, at the time, and then even like just people that have been having these issues throughout their lives, from like interns to your CEO. If you're in work and you're in business, this can impact you. It has such a detrimental effect. And so we're going to have a little discussion about sort of how that's having an effect, but also we're going to focus on one that's like close to my heart in terms of what I've learned over my own personal experience. But, I think as women, we have enough to contend with. It's bad enough that we have like a gender pay gap in certain industries. We have trouble with being visible, getting up there. To have issues that can impact our performance, our careers. What could we be doing as better employees, colleagues, peers to support those other women? And, what could we be doing about our own awareness, how we get informed, and what we can do to take action?
Definitely. I think it's being aware of these issues, and I know there's been more and more highlighters, isn't there, within kind of the online space, within the workplaces. I know there's still more to be done, but as you say, with these issues, I mean, a lot of women have this kind of imposter syndrome and confidence issues as well. So to have that health impact on top of that it can be really detrimental. I know a lot of people I work with have just sort of disappeared and said I just can't cope with work at the moment because they're suffering from health issues. A lot of the time I don't delve into what it is and why, but a lot of it is I work with a lot of midlife women. So a lot of that has been impacted by things like menopause, perimenopause, and it can have a really detrimental effect. And I think although there's more and more awareness around, there needs to be even more so and more people talking about it, because sometimes people don't really know what are the symptoms or even that they've even got it.
No, exactly. And to be honest, I was on a different health path, like journey for answers. And it was because of friends and family that had seen certain articles that went, have you considered this? And it veered my health course. Like it just veered that journey to actually, I don't think it's this. I think I need to speak to this specialist, and then found my way. But it still took me 4 specialists before I got a diagnosis, like 4. So and I'm one of the lucky ones. So by having these conversations, open conversations, I'm forever grateful to my friends and family who would like send me articles and go, I know that you're suffering, because I'm not somebody that's going to post on Instagram. I'm not that public. And also when you're not too sure, you're going through so much, you probably don't want to be vocal. But if you are somebody who is suffering as well, this is as much for you as it is for your employers, your colleagues, your teammates, whatever it may be. So there are ways to get help, find help as well. Like you said, because of online, I think that's really opened up and made it far more accessible to find that support, to find that help. And I know that I'm forever grateful for like how that's benefited me. Not for everyone, everybody's body's different. I keep on saying that whenever I get asked advice or wherever I go, like, somebody's asking for details, I'll just say everybody's body's different. How it works for me will be for a different cause of factors that it will work for somebody else. So, just by talking, really. And I think by destigmatizing it, because it's women's health, destigmatizing for me is, we need to be talking about this in schools. We need to be talking about this in, offices. I read this really sweet story on I think it was either on Instagram, but a little girl had just started a period and she didn't know, and another boy in school came up behind her and sort of like gave her his jumper to wrap around her, and it was like he had sisters, and I that really touched me, because I just sat there and thought, wow, like, I've been in situations where girls have laughed at other girls, for embarrassment or whatever. And it's just, like, you see it and you just think, like, now we're older, we know better. But, just to have that understanding and that compassion, I think is really key.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, some of the, obviously, this is something that you're really passionate about, and you shared a lot of stats and stuff in the articles, which, if you're watching this, if you check out the description below, Christelle shared a whole lot of links to articles and stats around kind of it's women's health issues and endometriosis as well, isn't it? And it's quite staggering. I mean, some of the things that you mentioned, for example, there are only 200 specialists worldwide that deal with it. There's a lot of there's 1.5 million people at females at birth which are currently living with endometriosis, which is 1 in 10. That's massive.
Massive number. But also, I mean, just to talk more broadly, I think that's, like, how many women are in the workforce? 47%? We were just talking about it, weren't we?
Yeah. So I'm just reading it here. Yeah, women make up 40% of the working population, but are underrepresented in terms at board level. The main contributor to this is breaks in talent pipelines caused by pervasive health and childcare inequality. So there was a research done. This is by Rewards and Benefits Association, and their survey of 1,004 women in late 2019 shows female health challenges are causing more than 3 million women to leave employment, costing businesses and valuable talent. So, and I mean, that's sort of, I think the most they mention are periods, fertility struggles, pregnancy, and menopause are the main ones. I think, you've probably got things like endometriosis, which aren't even in there because a lot of people don't get diagnosed properly.
No, and it takes up to 8 years for a diagnosis. And if you're in Wales, even worse, sorry to say. So it's because you're passed from pillar to post. The gynecologists don't necessarily understand it as much. I mean, so just to break down some of the stats, really, issues like this, endometriosis, I think, or is it mainly health issues? It was like it's costing the economy £8 billion in terms of loss of work, productivity, and it's really daft. It's really daft because if you had early diagnosis, better treatment options that were more accessible and affordable. I mean, a lot of people in the groups that I'm in are thinking about, we're going to have to go private because the wait times are just too long, but also because, they've been dismissed for so long. This is why it's taking longer, it's getting worse. So if you don't know what endo is, let me just explain. It is endometriosis is a condition where lining similar to that's found in the uterus can be found on your other organs. So it can penetrate like it could attach itself to the ovaries, bladder, bowel, brain, lungs, your thyroid. And it can manifest in all sorts of different symptoms. Yes, the symptoms are usually known for heavy periods, like heavy blood loss, chronic fatigue, debilitating pain. Like I can only describe it as going through childbirth. Like it's actually, my mum looks at me sometimes when I'm going through a flare, and it's really painful flares. And if you imagine you're going through that like every day, and some women every day, all day, I have like a very weird sort of, my body tends to react of, like set hours. So I'll always get at 2:00 when I'm having a flare up of whatever that day might be. And then the next month it might be at 8:00 or whatever it may be. So it really does vary body to body, but you experience like a flare, chronic fatigue. I mean, it can affect sort of like your bodily function. So again, impaired brain, it can how you're breathing, bladder, bowel movements. Like it can impact all of that. So you could be going in for something completely different, not aware that this is linked. And it was only because of certain questions and trips to A&E where I was just like, help me with the pain. And I just got asked certain questions and I just clicked when the flares were happening. But I was also doing things unknowingly, as in, I wasn't too sure about whether or not this would help. I was just trying to figure it out myself, but I'd managed to reduce the symptoms. So instead of like just constant white noise of pain and like this condition, I'd managed to reduce it so that I was able to listen to my body more and actually recognize, oh, it only happens at this sort of time or whatever. But it's an inflammatory condition. Some specialists are saying it's autoimmune related, so it's your immune system. So it's an inflammatory condition. So can you imagine if your body's inflamed like 24/7? You are so fatigued. I cannot explain that. There are days when, it's difficult putting one step in front of the other or even getting out of bed for some patients or for some people that have this condition. And so, I really feel for people that just can't function on a day-to-day. So the scale of which they're affected can be so varying. But the interesting thing is, because there's no scars, it's seen as an invisible illness, even though it's one of the NHS's top painful conditions and a registered disability, because makeup, you would never I've done shows where I've been in like flaring up or post surgery, and it's like the makeup goes on. I think as women we have a tendency to push on, more so, but unfortunately because of that stoic sort of approach to just getting on with it, it just means that doctors don't understand the pain levels. They don't understand, they just can't comprehend it because there's such little research on endometriosis, why it's caused, what sort of pain levels are we looking at, how it impacts life. And just to show how ridiculous it is, you have to laugh, otherwise you'd cry, but there was a journalist that was writing, she was talking about one of the earliest pieces of research was not actually on women and endometriosis, because endometriosis can sort of result in painful sex for some women actually. So one of the first pieces of research was not about sort of how does endometriosis affect women, how does endometriosis affect men who feel shunned because they're not getting sex from their partners who have endometriosis. That's actually one of the first pieces of research that's out there. To show, I think this for me is my passion point of, and when you understand how ridiculous women's health is in general, and especially when it's hormonal health, which there seems to be, to me, we've made strides in some sorts, in certain areas of medicine, but when it comes to hormonal health or how things will impact in hormonal health and what the detrimental effect is, I don't feel like we're, from what I've seen and read, I just don't have confidence in that.
Yeah, but I know you do a lot of, I mean, this is why we have, they have these chats and highlight this, and I know you do a lot of posting about it as well, and hopefully more and more people that do it. I've seen a lot more around sort of period shaming and stopping that. And obviously I remember years ago meeting one of my clients with the midlife coach, which hopefully we'll try and get onto one of the shows. And at that stage it was quite unknown of. Now there's loads of menopause coaches. So I think it's definitely, getting the word is getting out there. And I know a lot of people who kind of hit that midlife thing and they've got very similar symptoms, and yet they're going to the doctor and they're being diagnosed as having depression and put on antidepressants.
That's what happens.
And I can't say for sure, maybe it could be mental health issues, and I'm not trying to push that down or anything, but a lot of times you are getting misdiagnosis like this when it could be related to something like menopause. And there are other better ways to manage that than sticking you on antidepressants.
But that's what happened in terms of some of those endometriosis patients. It is, again, it depends on where, what symptom you've got, which specialist you're seeing. But same thing happened to me. I was so calm, and yet the rage inside when they tried to tell me, oh, you're going to need antidepressants. It's like, where did you get that from? I'm totally with it. I am fraught with maybe anxiety because of, I have no idea how this is impacting my business at the time. I actually couldn't work for like 5 months. I was struggling to walk. My mum was propping me up at one point when we were going for our little walks, which instead of the other way around. But equally, I think that, thinking about what sort of clients I can take on, I really had to overhaul my business, which, again, it's not so much a woe is me story, but actually you can, just to have that understanding that there are other business owners that have this condition and that can turn it around. So, to try and leave with a bit more hope as well in this conversation, the internet has now provided us with ways, and we're talking about diversity, inclusion, like making sure that everyone else is, that has these accessibilities, because it is a registered disability. If people are this far up, that this is the path that you're looking at in terms of this condition, if you're not managing it or you can't be out and about, like for worst case scenario, this is a registered disability for someone.
Yeah. So what sort of resources what have you found really helpful in situations like this? Because I think you can go and look and Google on the internet and you can just get flooded with so much information. And I know a couple of other people, as I've told you, that also suffer from endometriosis. And, and because everyone's, obviously the best thing is to try and find one of those specialists. But, people are getting bombarded by different sources and saying, oh, well, try this, try that, try this, try that. Oh, go there, go there. What have you found kind of worked for you?
So first off, visit Endometriosis UK. Like, they have a wealth of support there, and it's Endometriosis Action Month in March, which is why we're doing this, just to pre-promote. But for me, this was such an amazing community, like literally at parliamentary level, trying to instigate change, awareness, better regulation and sort of treatment options. They're really working hard, and again, it's because of them that they had sort of generated coverage, which friends and family had seen, forwarded it over to me. It helps. They're looking for spokespeople. I mean, it's great, that because of what they're doing. I think there was a storyline in EastEnders where Ruby has endometriosis, but can I just tell you that the rest of the community was watching that going, really, Ruby? It took you 2 weeks from a bit of pain to diagnosis? Don't think so. That's not real life. That is not the reality of so many women. When I think of young girls at the age of 9 that started their periods, that are told, oh, we'll just get on with it. This is welcome to having your period. And it's abnormal. It's abnormal pain. And they're in so much pain, and it's impacting their life. Only to find out like 10 years later, when it's like, how many trips to hospital have you had? How many trips to A&E have they probably had? For somebody to go, actually, have you thought it could be endometriosis, if they're lucky? So,
and also they're lucky catching it early enough as well, because it can get worse and worse, can't it, if left unmanaged or untreated?
Yeah, it can, where it infiltrates the organs. I mean, the other thing is that the tissue will bind the organs to the body, basically. So in some cases, there are parts of you that are fused, which needs to be manually sort of separated through like surgery, like laparoscopy, keyhole surgery. But it's still surgery. And what they're finding out is that, gold standard of treatment is laparoscopy and remove the endometriosis tissue as much as possible, or cysts that could be there, for example. But ultimately, and maybe hormonal treatments, it really depends on your condition. And, some women have, maybe after the first surgery, they don't need it for ages. Some women need hysterectomies. Some women need, a year, like their life will consist of surgery every 2 to 4 years. And the problem is that there is no cure, and you can't stop it. Like, you can't stop that tissue. So it's really you trying to manage this condition as best as possible. But also from that point of view of don't be upset. You've had surgery. I've known people 2 months later to get a flare up again, which is exactly, maybe they didn't get all of it, or, maybe it just grew back just as quickly. We don't know. But it's one of those things that I think it's really important to explain, because it is not just the physical impact. Obviously, when you have doctors that aren't listening to you, you are being medically gaslit. I've known friends that just turned around and went, I just gave up. I just live with it now. Just to live in that pain every month, it's just awful for them. For the hopefully the sweet relief of menopause, but we're finding out that even after menopause, it doesn't subside. So Lord knows how many women might have been suffering with this afterwards. But you have then obviously the treatment options as well. So early diagnosis is really important. How to manage it. I've had to do so much. My going on Endometriosis UK to find who the specialists are, the communities, what research is there. I think going
support networks as well. I mean, you're in quite a few groups as well, isn't it, where you can just get that kind of support and how people are managing it, and maybe in a more holistic way as well, isn't it? So, and I think, sort of taking it back to, we're talking sort of in health and business as well, is how you sort of looked at managing that throughout the days when you have sort of flare-ups and that. Do you kind of change your schedule around, and what do you find works for you or has worked for you?
So in terms of work, really good point, actually. Endometriosis UK has a endometriosis friendly employer pack. So please, if you do have women on your workforce, or you are a woman, download it. And it will sort of like advise best ways of supporting that person, or even yourself. If you're a business owner, there's no other way. You have to work around it. So, and also, like, just bear in mind, some people have had to have complete career changes. If it was heavy lifting, like I can't do simple tasks like I used to in terms of energy. I'm trying to work my way around it, but it's like there are certain things that if I was in heavy manual labor, I'd have to give that job up for sure. But some people are in those positions and love it, and it's so sad to see. So things like flexible working, thank God, of all of the things to come out of a pandemic, the fact that we are more accepting of Zoom and working from home. Please be more flexible, and allow them to work from home. People think that everyone's at home watching TV. It's not the case. I promise you, if you're having a flare up, the last thing you're thinking about is catching up on Jeremy Kyle. Like, oh, goody. Like, it doesn't happen. Like, that's just silly. You're just trying to function every day. And God, if you're a mum that's trying to manage children with this condition, there is a whole load of issues that are separate to that. You have parent guilt. You feel like you can't look after your children. I've read some heartbreaking posts and articles around this, and my heart just goes out to them. So there's so much more. So flexibility is absolutely key. I think as well, just be aware, having a good team and support. I would not have got as far as I have done in the last 3 years if it wasn't for my friends, my family, just like colleagues who understand. Like, Karen's brilliant. She's like there for accountability. Just to make sure I've got my tasks done, and sometimes it's good to have that, because you can.
As well as having the degree of flexibility, though, because if you're having a really bad week, I'm not going to be going, "Oi, Christelle, where is that thing you said you were going to do?"
But equally, you're not going to let me wallow either. Right, well, where is it? Like, we kind of need to get this done. All right, we could push it back a little bit, and obviously contingency plans. But, my priority is my client work. That's what's bringing the income in. So when we're doing things on the business, like, if you're a business owner, just have some compassion and empathy for yourself into what you can do and physically get done. But obviously get the support in. Realize that you cannot do everything. I cannot work the way that I used to when I was like 10 years ago. I just think, my God, how much do I get done? And you can find time to do it. Like, I'm lucky. I don't have, other factors like children to look after, so I can move that space. If I'm not good in the morning, I can move it to the evening. It's not that I will find a way to get it done. But if you don't have that luxury, then make sure you've got people around you that can move things along for you and get that support if possible.
Definitely, because if you're in a 9-to-5 job and you're trying to do that, I mean, it would be almost impossible, wouldn't it? So I think it's just, yeah, like you say, I think if people are in employment, they've got to work for someone that recognizes that, or look at alternatives of, starting up their own business where they've got that flexibility.
Well, this is it. So again, I've had to shift, like maybe not doing so much one-to-ones and being really picky over my one-to-ones, and my clients will expend as much energy. If they're the wrong client fit, we talk about this. It's all about your values, your purpose. You get more energized working with people, and you'll find a way to get it done. If it's someone that's not appreciative of you and your contribution, it's stress, because again, if you've got an inflammatory condition, things like nutrition, things like stress, things like toxins, all these elements that are contributing to that flare up, you need to sort of manage that so it's dialed down, so the flare ups are dialed down as much as possible. So stress for me, huge factor. Who I'm working with, who's giving me stress. If things are, of course, we can't escape stress, but could I be doing breathing, meditation? What things could I be doing to help lower that stress level? We talk about those benefits. So impacting that and making sure that's in your workday, making sure I've got access to acupuncture. If you're an employer, could you be giving benefits to workers? Or if you're if you're self-employed, or if you're a business owner, is that a cost you could put through the business? Again, just speak to your accountant about that. So,
and it's also such a huge issue. I mean, it could be, people who could help people in these circumstances with things like endometriosis. That's really something they could be helping a lot of people. If you say 1 in 10, that could be a really good viable business if you could specialize in something like that and actually help people who are suffering that, and get them, help them with ways, like you say, to sort of manage it better, the stress, and also being more streamlined as well, isn't it? So it's just like you say, I mean, being on Zoom, it takes a lot of energy. So if you're doing lots of one-to-ones, that's really going to impact your fatigue levels and that as well. Just looking at different ways that you could do things slightly differently.
Yeah, absolutely. Loads of resources. Again, the website, I would mark that as the primary go-to source of Endometriosis UK. There is a link in there. If you're an employer, there is an endometriosis friendly employment pack all ready for you. You can see the amazing work that they've done. If you are someone who thinks they suffer or something, just join the groups. Honestly, I cannot. They've been a lifesaver. Just if you've got a silly question, or also, we talk about medical gaslighting, and in fact, you mentioned that I don't actually post a lot on it. I might have referred to it, and my newsletters, I'll be a little bit open, but I've never talked really openly about my experience.
Yeah.
I really wanted to wait until I got a diagnosis, to be honest, to be truly honest about it. But equally, having those support groups, you are told you're probably depressed by a doctor, you're dismissed for your symptoms, even though you know that they're really serious. You know your body better than anyone, so do not let anyone tell you otherwise. So there's a lot that goes in that you almost doubt yourself. It's like having a toxic relationship with the medical system, because they don't believe you, they don't understand it, and you have to find that one gem. And again, through that, we could get referrals. You can see who's, I think it's BSGE is the term that you need to look for, one of those specialists. But just have a look on the website, you'll see it. And I made sure that by the time I'd been passed from pillar to post, like my next specialist was going to be someone that was an endometriosis specialist, and I found one that close to me. And in one session, one session was able to tell me, yes, you have it, because he actually felt it.
Yeah, I remember you telling me. Wow. Yeah. So I think that's really key from what people have said to me as well. Just make sure you don't just go to a gynecologist or someone who knows a bit about it. Actually go to someone who specializes in it.
So there's lots there. I mean, I think that there is so much to realize that, yes, women's health issues will impact from teens all the way through. It's such a big issue, and I hope that this chat might give you some better understanding, point you in the right direction. But again, you know, I'm going to write a blog on this as well, so I'll share it when we're doing the main sort of like promo around it, just to show that you can push forward. There are businesses that have found a way to get through this. We call them spoonies. I think somebody came up with a chart to show how much energy they had. So like 1 spoon is very low, and then 4 spoons is like how much you can do, like on that level, on that chart level of energy. So low being the low, 1 being the lowest, 4 being the highest. So they call it spoonie business owners, or spoonie, like, you know, spoonies as it were. Anyone with a chronic condition, you'll see it. And then also my final tip, please, like, find the humor. I have a very dark side of dark humor, so I will find memes hilarious on chronic illness. Have a laugh, surround yourself with good people.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that story with us, because I know, like you say, you have shared articles on Endo, but not your entire, you know, your personal story. And yeah, no, thank you for that. And sort of, you know, having the courage and being vulnerable enough to share that, because I know it's a very personal thing to share. But I'm hoping whoever's watching this, yeah, that you get something from this, and lots of resources there that Christelle has shared, loads and loads. So yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Thank you, guys. We will see you next week, but I hope you've enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel so that you get notified when we go live. And also there are links below of the newsletters so you can receive the information, or join us on our LinkedIn page. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Goodbye.